find a way.
So you are through and through Philadelphia, right? Born and raised?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that.
Yeah. When you were young, like at what point in your consciousness do you become like identify that you're a part of the city and the sports teams?
Yeah. I mean, it happens really, really young with a lot of people. Yeah, probably like 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just in that spot where all your friends are like, there's kind of a constant buzz about a Philly thing, being all Philly. So it kind of, it's the hum, and then you kind of hear it at like 6th, 7th grade. It's like, starts to become part of you.
Yeah. I imagine like all of the suffer, all of the historical suffering and your parents' suffering and the victories along the way. Like you just own it all when you're from a city like that.
Yeah. Just like when I was a kid, I remember, I mean, this is a dating statement, right? But like I'd listen to the radio on the way. We'd have Sunday travel soccer games, just be listening to the radio, Reggie White, Seth Joyner, like these just great players. And then you would lose like 17-10 to the Giants, like NFC East, just like classic, just like, here we are again.
Yeah.
Here we are again.
Yeah, and you feel it.
Yeah.
I was in, Phoenix back in the fall during the World Series. And I was looking forward to being there during World Series week, because I don't think they've ever been in the World Series. I thought, man, this is gonna be a great vibe. It wasn't. Like that's not a sports town.
Yeah.
It's a tourist town. Like I just didn't feel the same thing you feel from these real sports teams.
Yeah, you gotta go through the pain and suffering and the cold and the 0-14 kind of years. Then you become the real thing.
Yeah. And your kids, I'm sure your kids own it.
Yeah. We moved back to Philly when my son was 5, and he instantly, like within minutes, he knew that was the way to get to know people and influence them, was to be a Philly sports fan.
Yeah.
And from then it was just a love at first sight.
Yeah. That's the one I'd love to. I've always wanted to live in a sports town like that. Got my taste of it in Durham and Chapel Hill, where that rivalry, you get on a bus or a barber shop, and there's always something to talk about.
All day.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah. And this time last year you were here, you guys were getting ready to go to the Super Bowl and lose again, but Chiefs were a handful this year.
Yeah.
The one thing that I don't like about the NFL right now is the vibe in the stands. Like the away fans and the home fans are all sitting next to each other. I just don't think it should be. I don't think it should be that way.
Okay.
Like in soccer, European soccer, you've got an away section, right? Mm-hmm. And you put all the away fans there. Mm-hmm. It's not kumbaya.
Okay.
And I just feel like that would make the NFL so much better if they put an away section for the away fans. We were in London at a Chelsea match, and we're big Arsenal supporters, but we were there just undercover, just going to the match. And they were playing West Ham, which is a big rival. And a few rows down from us, West Ham scores a goal. And these 2 guys stood up and cheered. And as soon as they stood up, they like sat back down and slumped. They realized they had done something wrong. The entire section looks at them like, what are you? Right? How could this possibly happen? Like, how could there be away fans here? And I swear, it was like a well-oiled machine. The security comes down. They get those guys out of there. It was like a hostage rescue mission. They shuttled those guys out there so efficiently. Like they were out of there in 20 seconds.
Like you're not going to make it.
And if they hadn't, like there would probably been violence.
Yeah.
Like so.
Yeah.
But I love that.
Yeah. No. We're going to do it. Let's do it right.
Like there's plenty of gray areas in life, but when you support your team, like that should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at Super Bowl, neutral site,
Yeah.
week off. It's like it belongs in a place like Lambeau Field. It belongs in Buffalo. It belongs in snow and cold.
Yeah.
And it's like this kind of fabricated environment. It's like, all right. Like, I'll watch this year, but it loses the fire.
Lacks the character of it. But, well, tell me about like before the house flipping. Tell me about what life was like for Phil Dunbar. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah, I cut my teeth working for faith-based nonprofits.
Okay.
And so I started with that pretty early. I did some work for a couple of home builders right out of high school, just trying to figure things out. But then kind of started to work for those churches, nonprofit organizations, and so was really focused on leadership development, and that was kind of my shtick, so to speak, and spent a few years doing that. Went to grad school, and then after that worked with college students doing formational training and leadership development for college students as they came out of high school. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, spent 5 or 6 years doing that, and just came to just a moment in life where I didn't know what was next and how to kind of get at career-wise, get at some of the things I wanted to get at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty meaningful career, what you were doing. Like, that's what did you enjoy about that?
Yeah. I mean, it was leadership development and coaching. And so that's something that comes kind of natural to me, something that I really enjoy. It wasn't so much, I wasn't in as much of the academic setting, which is, can often move a little bit more, I think, towards like moving through tasks, moving through material. We moved this, we moved to this section, we got this done on the, curriculum, so to speak. It was more trying to think about people and saying, how do I draw the best out of you? How do I help you discover who you could really be?
Yeah.
And see the best in them and say like, hey, I see this in you. Like, what could this be in the future?
Yeah.
What kind of hurdles do you have to get through to get there?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that it was deeply rewarding. It was deeply rewarding. I mean, we got to travel, got to do a lot of things I wanted to do and liked to do and was good at.
Yeah.
And so, it was kind of an interesting time to be saying that it did. I wasn't sure if it fit what I wanted to do in the future.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with my dad, who's been an influential, wise person in my life over the years. He said, "What do you want to be doing in 5 years?" And that was one of those marker moments for me, where it's kind of like, I think when you're young, you're thinking like, what are you thinking? Like, I mean, as a high school student, you're thinking like 3 minutes ahead, or maybe like football season's coming, so like maybe I'll work out. And then as like a college student, you start thinking year to year, right? Like next year I'm going to be here, 3 years I'm going to be graduating. And so I was probably still a little bit in that mode. I'd gone to grad school, and that's kind of like 3 year. Okay, I know what I'm set for 3 years. I'm
right, which is an eternity when you.
But I eat, sleep, and breathe this, body of knowledge, and then but to think about that, like where are you going in 5 years?
Yeah.
Like what do you, and so that was good for me to. And not just daydreaming, right? Like I think it's easy to daydream about the future. But not just daydreaming, but like what do you really want to do? What are you good at? You know, it felt like that time I had done like 2 or 3 different things, worked for different people or different organizations, had done some little things on my own, I wouldn't even call it entrepreneurial things, just little things of working for myself and kind of saying like, where's this all going? Like, how are you putting the pieces together in a way that you're not just thinking, well, maybe I could be a rocket scientist. It's like, no, you're probably not a rocket scientist, but like, what do you carry in the bag that you want to put together to make something? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I hadn't thought about it as daydreaming, but that's a good visual. Like, what's the difference between daydreaming and actually moving forward to something? You know, like daydreaming, you don't really think about how the parts align.
Yeah.
For you, like, what was that process like? Like, maybe you did daydream of being an astronaut,
Right.
but you had probably developed skills in this other career, developing leaders, coaching. How did you connect those dots to move past the daydreaming?
Yeah. I think it's partly age. I think you just wisen up. You get a few kids, a few more responsibilities in your life, and you're like, this better kind of like come together. like the wheels are coming off a little bit here.
Life forces a sense of urgency.
Yeah. Daydreaming, don't buy diapers. You know, like when you have a couple kids. You know, you're like, this is real.
Yeah.
So. Maybe just a feeling that like time is continuing to push on, and it's, And I got around a few good people that, definitely in my business life, I just got lucky to get around a few good people that gave me some things I could execute that moved me from daydreaming to like actual opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was big.
Yeah.
That was big.
I think self-awareness probably plays a role in that too, right? Like you start really understanding what you're good at, what you're not good at is pretty important in moving past the daydreaming, right? And like that self-awareness in your 20s, it's such a steep learning curve, and in your 30s, and then it's like you learn from these experiences, doing all of these different things. You learn what you're good at. You start to align your dreams with your skill set, and hopefully it leads to something that aligns those things.
Yeah.
I don't think not everybody gets that opportunity, right? Like I know a lot of people that go through life and they never were able to align their skill set with the opportunities that brought that. They were able to align those
And
things.
what is that? Is that luck? Or is it like what? Or is it hustle? Like what's the difference?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think there's a little bit of luck in everything, right? Like crossing paths with the right people at the right time is part of it. But I think the hustle makes luck too, right? The hustle puts you in front of people. So I don't think anything's all luck.
Yeah. I mean, I think about Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers. Like, I think one of that major premises of the book is like it's right thing, right time, like the one-hit wonder, or like the Cinderella story.
Yeah.
Is like, I think he kind of was saying like, it's actually not that. It's like you're saying, that combination of right time, right place, right person, a touch of luck,
Yeah.
and you seize the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, all those things, and also just putting yourself out there, right? Like just putting yourself out there. I think there's a lot of, just go back to that daydreaming visualization. I think there's a lot of daydreamers that never put themselves out there, and just doing, right? Even if it's not the right thing, just doing, putting yourself out there. And I suspect one of the things that holds people back from that is the fear of failure. Yeah, it would limit people to daydreaming. And I would imagine in your career in developing leaders, that was probably one of the biggest things for a leader to, especially young people, learn to do. Is like, put yourself out there, put yourself at the front, and risk failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they talk about that with sports, right? That the team sports are more popular because you can hide behind someone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my Samuel, you know, he was 10 this year. He was pitching. Mm-hmm. And like it was his first year. Like he's funny, man. He's like he was a short kid. His hat looks way too big for his head. And he's walking out with the ball, and I'm like, my wife's like, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, I don't know if I can come to games if my son's gonna pitch. You know, like, and I'm like, he'll be fine. My whole time, like, my heart's pumping. I was like, I'm thinking, I hope he's better than I was at pitching. Yeah. But you know, he just walks out there like this little pipsqueak, and like, part of it is he doesn't have fear. He doesn't know what can go wrong, and it's just like, what do you do to a kid? You just say, throw the ball, throw it like we throw it in the yard. Yep. You know what I mean? Yeah. And but man, it is that you're very exposed when you're on that mound. Yeah. It's a lonely place, but that inner of kids with no fear of failure. It's a magical thing. And like we both coached a lot. And it's like, I feel like one of the responsibilities of a coach in developing a player is to give them a safe place to fail and to reach outside their comfort zone. I mean, I think about, I'm not a baseball player, but I watch baseball players, and like a pitcher, right? Yeah. Like if we're putting pressure on them, and we don't, like, if he feared failing, he's gonna go to his one pitch, his best pitch all the time, right? Yeah. Like, where's he gonna develop the other? Where's he gonna develop that second pitch and that third pitch? It seems to me like that's where that leadership development it's so important. Like, it's okay to try the curveball. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You're gonna throw a meatball every once in a while.
But I think kids have a fear of failure. I think parents have a fear of failure. Coaches fear failure, and it makes it so much harder for kids to risk, take those risks. But we were talking about NBA players out there earlier. Yeah. Kobe, man, he had that thing. Like, give me the ball. Yeah. Where does that come from? I suspect that somewhere in his life, like, he had a space where he could, maybe the street, playing in the street, where not afraid to take that shot. Yeah. So that led you to the construction world? Or you already had an interest in that?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I had spent some time in the construction world. When you're in nonprofits, money's sometimes pretty tight. So right out of high school, I worked for a high-end custom builder for about 2 or 3 years, and learned the ins and outs of high-end custom building. And So then I just kind of used it to supplement my income all the way through. And when I was in grad school, I worked for a big developer. I worked for a big developer, like 200 houses a year, decent sized developer. And I was
Like new construction residential?
new construction, popping houses up in the suburbs.
Ah.
And and I was going to grad school trying to do that. It was right in 2006 when the market tanked last time. Yeah. And it was like, this is a fun place to live or a fun place to work, and all kinds of opportunities and bonuses and this and that. You could drive the company car. And I'm like, dude, I need money. Like, you don't understand how much money I need right now. Like, I had just had a kid. I'm going to grad school, and I was like, bonuses mean nothing to this guy no more.
It's not about the quality of life.
I might not make it to that bonus. And so I was working. I made some connections in the building, just the small residential construction world. And I just realized I'm dying. I'm, trying to do grad school. I'm trying to read till midnight every night. I'm starting like 4:30, 5 o'clock to work enough hours to make enough money and blah, blah, blah. And I just quit. Yeah. And started a construction company out of my wife's sedan from college. Yeah. Literally this white Mazda 626.
No truck.
No, I didn't need a truck, man. I needed money. I already told you what I needed. I literally, like one of the highest end home builders in the area, went to our church. So I'm like, hey, I can do stuff for you, blah, blah, blah. One day I show up with an extension ladder strapped to my Mazda 626. And I mean, these are like $1 million clients from New York City. Like this addition was probably like $600,000. And this Yahoo's driving in the back driveway with this thing going, I need money. And so I did that while I was in grad school, and then went and worked for 5 years at that organization I was telling you about. Yeah. Got to that spot. My dad told me that. And he told me, what are you going to do in 5 years? And I said, I came to the conclusion, like that night, it's not this. A week later, I told the guy that I cared about, that was like a mentor to me. It was like one of the top 5 hardest conversations of life. I gotta go. And he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I don't know. I gotta go. And and saw my students through June, and then mid-June moved, and a week later started the construction company back up. And so that's, it's always been my go-to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was my way I was making wages. I wasn't making money. I wasn't building it. I was just billing hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I'm not a builder. I don't get excited about power tools. Yeah. It's not what I sit around and talk about. Yeah. Yeah. It was a means to get me to where I was going, and I didn't know where that was. And I needed something to go pay my bills while I was there.
It sounds like you knew it was a means to an end the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably it's probably harder for some guys. Well, I mean, I can speak to myself. Like, coaching was a passion of mine, and it's harder when you don't acknowledge that it's a means to an end. It's harder to move on. Probably harder to move on from something. Yeah. Imagine a lot of guys in the ministry get caught with that.
Yeah. It's easy to be dead inside and just do what you're doing because it's what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. And I was at that spot. And in leadership, people, I think they deserve our best. Yeah. 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 And I wasn't able to bring it for whatever reason. I just wasn't able to bring it. It wasn't the right space, and I needed to get in a different space. And I just thought, I'll buy a red truck. Mm-hmm. And I'll drive around and fix things and pay my bills till I figure it out. Mm-hmm. I spent about 3 or 4 years just kind of, I think there was some recovery that was going on. There was some stuff that was inside of me that wasn't right that I was trying to figure out. And it was good.
Yeah. How old were you during that?
I was about 30
Yeah.
when I came back from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I can't speak for everyone, but man, you just learn so much about yourself in that stage of life. You accumulate some skills in your 20s, but you don't really know yourself. Then you start figuring yourself out a little bit. It's an important time of life. Like, get those things right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was the right time for it, and yeah.
So your dad asked you the question,
$1 million question.
Like, what do you want to? What do you want? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Is that that's the question?
Yeah. He was just kind of
Did you have any? I've asked people that, and most of the people I ask that don't have any idea.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea at the time he asked you?
I wouldn't say I knew. No, I wouldn't say I knew. I will say I've been in love with real estate since I was a kid. I just loved it, man.
Yeah.
From like, it was just so cool, man.
Yeah.
And not like getting rich, but just like sitting around, like it's a Philly thing, right? All right, so like we eat good pizza in Philly, like top notch. Like, like not, New York City, Philly, like good pizza. So we go out to pizza shops, me and 2 of my friends, and we were all they started businesses right out of high school. They're still, running their own businesses. We still are good friends, but we just sit there and read real estate magazines.
Really?
Yeah. Like as 16, 17-year-old guys with trucks and like little direction, just like having fun, swimming on the weekends in creeks and doing this and doing that, and just looking at these real estate and just like, man, that's where it's at.
Yeah. There's something magical about it, right? Like there's no ceiling to it.
It's like, man, it's just, now, for years, and then 4 years into like, kind of being active in real estate, it's like, I get up even on a hard week and like, man, I just got fire in my belly for it, man. It's like, let me at it.
Yeah. It's just like the possibilities, man. Like the possibilities of building things, solving problems.
Yeah, it's like, where do you want to be in 5 years? It's like when you're in real estate and you're kind of like working it out day by day, doing the right stuff, like, it's like that upside potential's there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places, an average guy with average amount of money, average intelligence.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places you could go with it.
Yeah, there's always another level, right? And you don't have to be born into it. Like there's just always another level that you can obtain. But like the daydreamers never get there, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got to add value. Like real estate's not something that you do behind a computer screen. Like it's like there's no ceiling to it, but you've got to add value and figuring out how you add value.
Yep.
Like it sounds like you started with your Mazda 626 with the ladder on the top, and you were adding value, right? To that developer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a difficult niche to figure out, even though it's all around us, right? There's 1,000 houses, like we're sitting here, we're looking out at Bristol. There's 1,000 houses that could be more, but knowing how to like turn the right wheels in the right way at the right time, apply the right money, the right pressure, borrow all the money, get it back, all those things. Like, that's the stuff that the daydreamers can't figure out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And you got to start with something. Like, you got to just get your hands, to some extent, you just got to get your hands dirty doing something. You know, strap the ladder to the 626.
Yeah.
And learn
See
how
what
to
happens.
add some value, and then you can add more value. But it's not a daydreamer thing.
And anybody who's gonna, I mean, now that, you know, we're well past 25, we'll put it that way, right? A few years, just past a little. You realize that, like, you know, we're talking to these young guys out here, you know, it's like, I'm not interested in, you know, your pitch deck, your, you know, all your ideas, all that kind of stuff. It's like, do you have hustle? Do you have like, you look me in the eyes, tell me a story about your life, have a good conversation with me, and show me you're willing to, get dirty. It's like, I have money for people like that around me. Like, let's figure out how to leverage that opportunity, you know, for the good. But I think people think that, like, if I daydream hard enough and I, like, get the right idea, somebody's just going to hand me cash to do something with. And it's like, no, I've been around the people with the cash. They don't think like that.
No, they don't think like that. No, there's this term out there is passive income. I've been in real estate for a long time. I've never figured out what that is. I've never run into that. Have you?
I'm looking for it actively. Passive income is the holy grail. I mean, it's the holy grail that everybody's seeking. But for 99, I'm making up stats, 99% of the people, you know, in the world, passive income comes after a lot of active income. Really active income.
And they're passive investments when it happens. But passive income, man, in real estate, like, it's like this unicorn, this expectation that is put out there. That's just not, it's not how it works. It's figuring out how to add value every single day. And then you figure that out. You add a little bit more. You connect the dots. You add a little bit more. It's just none of it's passive. Like, that's out in the future somewhere.
Really far out there.
Way out there. Yeah.
I mean, I think of real estate like buy and holds. I just always think of the train. Like that image of, like, it's a train, like a locomotive, I think they say, is one of the most efficient forms of transportation. And that's why it was built so much early on, because they're like, hey, this is an efficient way to move it. You have a ton of front end work to get it going. And it moves very, very slow. But once it does, it can power through almost anything and run on its own rails and just continue to be productive once you get it there. And, like, so when I'm working on, whether it's a flipper or I'm working on something I'm going to keep for the future, I just always think of that train image of, like, I'm fueling this train. And I'm sooner or later it will do its thing. And residential real estate's a great bet. It's going to continue to move ahead, maybe even long after I stop pushing it. But right now, I need to push it. And that's, like you're saying, adding the value. getting out to these places, doing the repairs, taking care of them, getting good tenants.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, it's adding that construction in the right places, spending your money, spending it efficiently, moving it through your system, getting it back out the other side. It's just this front end work. Front end, like let's make this train move so that someday it can produce things that we only imagined.
Yeah. And it's heavy lifting, and the rewards when that thing's getting churning are really low, right? Like you just gotta believe that you keep putting your hands in the dirt and you keep adding value every day, that locomotive is eventually going to start getting its own momentum, its own energy.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, man, it's heavy lifting.
Yeah. It's a lot.
In the lifting, like we talk about adding value, there's a lot of different ways to add value in real estate. But when it comes down to it, man, real estate's a physical thing. And somebody's got to improve the property.
Yeah.
Like that's where there's ways to add value with the finance. Of course, there's ways in marketing and lead generation. But real estate is about improving the value of the property. Yeah. And that's a physical thing. And construction is hard. Yeah. Like you've gained a real expertise in that, and it's tough, right? Like it's not getting any easier.
No, to think, I mean, if you could really, really streamline the process, somebody else would be doing it.
Yeah.
A big company would be coming in, they take all medium to small size flippers out.
Yeah.
And they would just do it on scale.
Yeah.
Because it takes the kind of hustle and expertise and kind of niche understanding of the business, it's hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have some sort of predictive model of how we can do this in the future, and therefore we can hire lots of people, and we can do this, and we can do that. We can buy this kind of tools, and we can do this, and we can make big money on it in the future.
Yeah.
They can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Like the D.R. Hortons of the world can build tens of thousands of new construction houses across the whole country. They can't scale remodeling.
No.
It's just uniquely difficult to do. There's so many unique, every project's unique. So many decisions at the local level to make. But where the hard problems are, when I see a hard problem, I see opportunity. You know, if like you're saying, like if this was scalable, normal people wouldn't have a chance, right? The big money would remodel every change of the housing stock of this country. They can't. So it's opportunity because it's a hard problem to solve. Yeah. You're doing a lot of projects at one time, right? How many do you have going on?
I'd say we have about 6 going on right now in different parts. Buying a few more here soon, so probably time to sell a few.
Yeah, yeah. What would you? I know this is a tough question because there's a lot of hard parts. But what are the hardest parts right now of running 6 job sites?
It's the human piece.
Yeah.
So just getting the right people in the right places to be successful.
Yeah.
Figuring out what somebody's good at, what they're not good at.
Yeah.
And kind of playing to everybody's strengths every day. That's really, I think, been our biggest hurdle, but also our biggest success over the last few years. The one person that's worked with me for years, 5 years now, he's been with me flipping houses. And he's really good at that too.
The people part.
The people part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He just gets people. And I feel like we've built a construction company that is a little bit unique, that people are highly valued. And not just based on what they produce, but who they are. And because we understand who they are, we can put them in the best places for success. And where they enjoy their work and we're getting the best out of them every day.
Yeah. How important is it to acknowledge what those people are not good at?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's trying to do construction on production numbers, your margin for error is under 10%.
Yeah.
So if you think of that, if we go 10% in the wrong direction for 2 days because of having the wrong guy on the job, I lost that 10%, then I got to fix it and then redo it.
Yeah.
So that's a big nut.
Yeah.
And so I think there's that piece of just, if I got the wrong guy on the wrong project, I pay for that multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just from the human piece is that people function best when they're in their best places.
Yeah.
Like that's what you did as a coach, right?
Yeah.
Like you just were like, who is this recruit coming in?
Yeah.
How does he think? How does he work? How does he work in a big game? How does he work in a, how does he work when, there's the season's on the line or whatever.
Yeah.
In all these different situations, like where are they best?
Yeah. I think when you're a young coach, you think that you have more power than you actually do. I think you have the power to like change people. I stopped believing that. Like I don't think you fundamentally change people. You figure out how to get the most out of people with their personality.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Like you say, put them in a place where they can succeed.
Yeah.
Not change them, not try to turn them into something that they're not, or wish them to be something that they're not. And in construction, there's a lot of that. Like guys think they might be something that they're not, and set themselves up for failure.
Yeah.
But like empowering them by putting them in the right place.
I think that one of the big mistakes real estate investors use when it comes to construction is they give up control too easily and too quickly.
Yeah.
Because it is really hard.
Yeah.
And it's time-consuming work.
Yeah.
And they want it off their plate so bad, they constantly, over and over, hand it to people who can't handle it. And then wonder why they go over.
So they cede control to a contractor.
Sometimes they give them large sums of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those of us that have been at this for a little while, like if somebody said that, which happens every day to real estate investors, like I gave the guy 20 grand and he never came back.
Yeah.
You did.
That's too much power.
I wouldn't give a lot of my guys $20.
Yeah.
And that's not because they're not good people, like whatever, but like they just want somebody to say, I've got the silver bullet.
Yeah.
I solved all your problems. It's gone.
That's so true.
You don't have to push the locomotive anymore.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, right?
Yeah. You'll push the locomotive. Sold.
I can go back to passive income.
Let me walk out to the truck and grab the checkbook.
No, that's a great point. Like, and I'm with you. Like, I see that happen. I see that happen a lot. So what is that? But then the other side of that is guys that won't get out of the job site, and then they never get past the pushing because they're actually in the locomotive shoveling the coal every day, right?
I'm my own best guy. That syndrome.
Yeah. So it's like that balance between you to build something bigger than yourself. You've got to trust. You've got to trust people, right? But then in construction, you can't trust too much, right? So
don't make it happen.
Where's that? Like, where's that balance?
Yeah.
Where do you think, like specifically, like where do you think it's important to maintain control, and then where is it important to trust?
As a house flipper, you want to be there the first 2 weeks. That's where all your money is made or lost.
Yeah.
All the expensive stuff happens in the first 2 weeks. I mean, anybody can paint. You can paint it wrong and I could still make money. But when we're doing electrical systems, when we're doing HVAC units, when we're choosing whether to do the roof or not, when we're opening up walls and seeing what was really inside this thing we bought.
Yeah.
You're normally you're talking about adding value.
Yeah.
You're normally adding value because you solved a problem. So you're either sometimes you're solving a seller problem. I don't have money and I need it. Okay, I can help you with that. But lots of times you're solving a problem with the house.
Yeah.
And when you're solving that problem is in the first 2 or 3 weeks. You're either doing the clean out from the hoarder. You're taking the structural problem and you're making it go away. You're taking the termite damage out. You're fixing the plumbing system that's broken. Yeah. And so I dial in at that time because I know that's the time I make or lose my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that's a great visual, focusing in on that first 2 weeks. Do you find, where does that expose the weaknesses of the contractors?
There's some contractors that don't understand the budgeting side of things. That there's decisions where there's expensive decisions we're making in those moments that make or break. They just aren't used to being around the numbers or big enough numbers. And so they'll just make decisions that are either in their best interest or just bad decisions.
Yeah.
I find what I'm best at is being in the room and hearing the options and choosing either A, B, or hybrid. And most of the time it's a hybrid. That I'm in that room at the right time to say, this is my decision, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
It's not your decision, it's my decision, and it's done, and we're moving ahead. Burn the boats.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Get the tools out. By the end of 2 days, we're going to be glad we did this.
The enemy is not always a bad decision. The enemy is indecision. Yep. Right? Like when you fail to make those decisions and then you just kick the can down the road. And now you've got there's ripple effects to that. But understanding A, B, and then maybe crafting a C any of those options are better than not making that decision at all, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where you really create pain for yourself.
Yeah. But I can't imagine people that put that in the hands of their contractor, because I work with good guys that know their stuff. They've been in the field a long time. A lot of them often would make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And or a decision that would cost me at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've decided that I'm going to make those decisions.
Yeah, and that's great. That's great advice. So you're in a job the first 2 weeks. That also includes the before you start swinging a hammer on that job, right? The staging of that job and the planning of that job.
Yep.
How much time do you spend? What does that process look like?
The pre?
Yeah.
Yeah. I normally try to meet on site with your main team, whoever your main team is, the people that are responsible to move this ahead, whether it's your contractor, your designer. Having a game plan day one is big.
Yeah.
Knowing where you're headed. You will have to adjust. So there's a thing that says, well, we'll just get into it and then we'll figure it out. That's just a great way to lose money for 2 weeks.
It's a terrible idea.
Like if you think, if you think about 2 weeks is your chance. What if one of those 2 weeks you went in the wrong direction?
Yeah.
And so making that decision early on and saying, this is the plan. Feedback what you're seeing as a contractor, but here's the plan.
Yeah.
So getting that going, day one is pretty important.
I suspect a lot of people get intimidated from being involved in those first 2 weeks and in the planning and pushing back against a contractor because they don't have the construction skills, right? Like I don't have those skills. But what you're describing is not construction skills. It's leadership skills. Getting the contractor to asking the right questions, getting people on the same page, having a vision for where this project could be at the end. How do we get on the same page to get there? Not being satisfied with indecision. That doesn't require construction expertise.
Right.
But it's leadership, right?
Right. Yeah, and sticking with that all the way through the project.
Yeah.
Sticking with that kind of, that mentality, it doesn't have to be arrogance. It just has to be, I'm the guy paying the bill at the end, so I'm running this from start to finish and just sticking at that in a consistent flow of, I'm tied in with my project. I know what's going on. I'm watching the numbers. That allows your whole team to understand, like, this today matters. Today matters to this guy.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people, real estate investors, that don't show up to their projects for 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm just thinking, oh boy, I don't know what you see when you go back, because I'm away for a long weekend. I have a really competent person there, and I'm still looking forward to getting back. Sunday afternoon, I might drive around and look at some things.
Yeah.
Because it just moves quickly.
Yeah. It just seems like leadership. It seems like it's leadership. It's not it doesn't, when I hear you talk, these things are probably go back to, there's probably similarities with the first job you had in leadership. It just happens to be a different type of person that you're leading.
Yeah.
It's cool to think about how all the different things that you do in life, you start developing those skills, different ways to add value, and then you put them together in something that works.
Yeah, And when you feel like you're in that spot where some of the things came together, it's just gratifying, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even when it's tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, it starts off about the houses, like the house is the reward, but it's not, it becomes more than that. It becomes about the organization and like the team. The satisfaction is in the team that can develop the properties. For me, it stopped being about the houses a long time ago. And that's super rewarding. Like to see a contractor set up for success and really spread their wings doing something that they're really good at.
Yeah. Yeah. To give your people stability around you, to build a business that's like, hey, this is stable. Like, I mean, I told our teams, we have a fair number of guys running right now, guys I just really care about as people. And I was like, hey, we're booked until May.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just every day, I told them every day we have work till May. And these are guys who just came from a world that's very unpredictable, and people in their neighborhood some days have work, and in the winter, a lot of their people in their neighborhood don't have work.
Yeah.
And I'm like every day, we know what we're doing. You need an extra day, you need some extra money, there's more work.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Train is moving.
Yeah, right. I think so.
So, 5 years from now, what does that look like?
I'm still madly in love with residential real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I spent the first 10 or 15 years like out of high school, just like what's next. And like the last 4 years, like I haven't, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
you
getting set up for some sort of stumble, like I didn't see that coming, but like, just I love what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's deeply rewarding. I think I told you, man, when I was driving around in that red truck, it's what I needed to do at the time, but man, I was empty. Yeah, it's just an empty dude.
Yeah.
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 And I think I was talking to you about it, and I was like, I want to lead again. I think I want to lead again. And so in 5 years, I want to lead.
Yeah.
I want to lead the guys on my team I really care about. Rob, I was telling you about, has been with us for 5 years. Like, he's grown so much.
Yeah.
The last year or two, he has grown so much, like in all facets of our business. I'm like, this dude's, he's crushing it.
Yeah.
And that's deeply gratifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I want to lead in the real estate space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like a little bit of passive income. All this after stuff is real work. And so I'm feeding properties into my locomotive.
Yeah.
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 And today my dad called me, and he was replacing a toilet at one of the rental properties, and he was feeding the locomotive. He was taking good care of it, because someday I hope that runs without me a little bit.
Yeah.
And that I can stand and just enjoy some of the pushing. Just enjoy and be like, that pushing was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be about wealth. It would just be about like standing there and watching it. Can I tell you one quick story?
Yeah.
I always wanted to do a really big deal. right? Like a couple years, actually like first year in this, I had a number of like, I'd like to sell one house that would make me this amount of money. And it was in there, like, I'm a pretty challenge-oriented person. Like, it was just like, I kind of said it in passing, but like it was real. It was like, this number is what I want, you know? And so it kind of snuck up on me. This year, we did a big project, and it was risky. Like, you talk about first 2 weeks. I was tied tight the first 2 weeks because there were some significant problems that I got to get the deal done, and some significant problems to add value. And a couple more pretty hairy.
Yeah.
And so like I had done this whole project. We spent $121,000 on construction. Ended up spending, you know, our initial budget was like 100. I spent 21 more because I believed it was going to give it back to me. And this place just came out beautiful. It was nice. And we got a great showing, sold it. And so I was away when it sold. And so I was in Maine, and Acadia National Park is one of the most beautiful places on earth, you know. The cliffs come right down to the water, and so I'm with my boys, and we're just hiking on these cliffs, you know, and it's a beautiful day, just like, and just like I'm watching I'm like on an adventure with these boys, you know? They're just climbing and just doing what they should do, like, you know, just like, like out there. And my phone goes off, and I get a text, and it's like, deal is done, everything went well.
Wow. Yeah.
And like, that was the day I hit a goal that like, that was my daydream goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were
that's what, like, young Phil sat in the pizza shop, like daydreaming with his buddies about like, someday, like, maybe I could like do this kind of deal.
Yeah. And be in a park with your kids.
Yeah. Just being like, it was like deeply gratifying. Like, I see these people with real estate, and they're like, you know, they make money, and they're like, oh, you know, smoking cigar, you know, smoking cigars. I saw this guy with like a stack of $100 bills when he sold his first thing, like sitting in front of him, like on YouTube. Like, and I was like, what a loser.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really? Like, is that a leader? Is that? And I'm just like, man, but to have this like deeply gratifying, like, man, that was just, it was just a moment. Yeah. Just a moment, like one of the snapshot moments, like that pushing was worth it.
Yeah. That wasn't luck, and that wasn't passive income, even though it happened at a state park with your kids and you weren't there. Like, that was the product of adding value years ago and adding a little bit more. Like, that paycheck, that day started with the ladder tied to your 66, right? That's where it started. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And that's the beautiful thing about real estate is like those daydreams the dreams can come true, but it's not passive. It's getting your hands dirty, showing up those first 2 weeks, leading. Right.
Yeah. It's like charge. Let's go. Like, let's go. Let's get after this. You know, or it's sports, whatever metaphor you want. It's like, there is the hard. Like, if you'll go in there with me, we can do this.
Yeah. Man, that's great stuff.
Yeah. It's fun.